Lunch with
Brad.
Lunch with Brad. Oh, yeah. It's that time of the every other week for Lunch with Brad. We're back, episode 4. I'm excited. You should be excited. We got some fun friends on today. And as always, this is Lunch with Brad. It's a bi-weekly podcast where we talk about technology, web, and everything and anything in between that I want to talk about because I geek out on this stuff and love it. So this is my minimum viable podcast. I'm super excited. We got some fun guests and some fun topics. So quick show note, if you want to get involved, hashtags Lunch with Brad. It's very simple. Go on Twitter, go on Facebook, Lunch with Brad. Would love to hear your topics, your opinions, your feedback, your thoughts, things we could be doing better, things we could be doing worse. Send them our way. We'll definitely talk about it. But let's dive right in. I want to introduce my guest. First up, we have Mr. Bob WP himself, Bob Dunn. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Hey, Brad. Glad to be here finally. It's kind of brunch with Bob here, so I guess I'm a little bit earlier, but
that's got a nice ring to it. Brunch with Bob. Yeah.
There's number 5, right?
Yeah, you're on the West Coast. I'm obviously on the East, but Bob's out West, so a little bit earlier for him. Why don't you tell everybody quickly a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, I pretty much on my site, bobwp.com, and I blog and podcast. I have about 4 podcasts at this moment in time. You never know up or down on that, but yeah, I talk about e-commerce, blogging, content marketing, monetizing, all that good stuff over there. So tons of information.
Mr. E-commerce himself, Bob WP. Well, I'm glad to have you on. And we also have our first repeat. It only took 4 episodes. Joe, you get the honors of being our first repeat guest. So for anyone that might have missed the episode that you were on, which I believe was episode 1, wasn't it?
Indeed, it was, yeah.
Inaugural. If anyone missed that one, which if you did, you should go watch it. Why don't you let everyone know who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Joe Casabona. I'm a front-end developer and online educator. I also have a podcast called How I Built It. You can find all of that and more at casabona.org. It's also, since it's opening day for the baseball season, I'm a huge Yankee fan, born and raised in New York, living in the greater Philly area.
Which I couldn't tell if you're watching the video that you're a Yankees fan since you have, I'm pretty sure you have a shirt on, you have a hat on. I don't want to know what else you're wearing that might be. Yeah. It's all you can see, and that's good enough. But I was just going to that. It is opening day.
Ready for the baseball season.
It's a beautiful day in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where the Phillies will lose to whatever team they're playing. It is opening day. I'm excited. I'm a big Philadelphia Phillies fan. I got my my little lucky bobblehead here, who's been not doing a great job the last couple of years. So hopefully this is the year. But go Phils. They kick it off in a few hours here. I've been saying it's a rebuilding year for the last 5 years or so now. I'm just looking for 500. If we get to 500, I'm perfectly happy with it. But yeah.
Arrieta might get you there just by himself. So we'll see,
I hope. Last year, I think we were last or second to last in the entire league. So it's a little bit rough, but it's exciting. Opening day is always kind of gets the juices flowing. Football's behind us. Hockey and basketball are kind of winding down. So it is baseball season, which means better weather too, which is another great reason for it. So I'm excited.
Philly sports have been doing really well in general, though. So, Nova's in the Final Four, and
they're on the uptick.
Yeah,
Villanova's back in the Final Four, which we have a company league, and I'm actually in first place right now, if you believe it, with this weird March Madness that we've had with a lot of big upsets. Somehow I'm number 1, and it all comes down to the Villanova-Kansas game. If Villanova wins, which I picked to win the whole thing, then I'm taking it all.
Nice.
And if they lose, then I don't know. I drop like 5 places or something. But so I think the game's Saturday, so I'll be watching that pretty closely.
Nice.
At all. Good times. So don't you love it when I do that? But let's dive into it. We got some fun, interesting topics, some hot topics, you might say. At least that's what I'm going to say. But oh yeah, where is my ship bell? All right, I want to talk about Facebook. So, obviously, there's been some big happenings with Facebook and data and privacy, and I'm sure anyone listening has heard something about this, even if they don't know all of the details. But I'll give you a kind of a quick rundown of the initial thing that kind of kicked this off, which was Facebook and the Cambridge Analytica data. It's not a breach, but data, exploit, I guess. Well, it's not even really an exploit. Let me just tell you what happened, and then you can call it whatever the hell you want. I'm trying to think of the word, but it wasn't a hack or a breach. It was, which is the even more scary part is like we allowed this to happen, right? So that's why it's so blah. But basically, a professor at Cambridge University created an app, right, called "This Is Your Digital Life." And that app utilized the Facebook login feature, which probably everybody listening utilizes from time to time because we're all very lazy, right? And you can click one button and register on the site and you're logged right in and you're done. And that button is using your Facebook login, your Facebook account. So that's exactly what he did. And he had about 270,000 people use the Facebook login to create an account for this app. And what that allowed him to do is they were able to opt in to share some of their personal information. And that's exactly what you do when you use that app. You're opting in to allow that app to access some of your information. What I think a lot of people didn't realize is by opting in, they actually this isn't happening today, but I guess a year or two ago, not only was it opening up their personal information to this app, it was also exposing some of their friends' information. And you can see how that would have a pretty big snowball effect. So it actually opened up data of around 50 million Facebook users. So these are users that didn't use this app, had nothing to do with this app. They just happened to be friends with the 270,000 that did use the app. And they were able to pull a lot of information like locations, interests, even stuff like photos, status updates, and check-ins. So they're estimated about 30 million of those people contained enough information, including places of residence, that the company could use the other records to build a psychographic profiles. So essentially to really determine the type of stuff you're into, the type of stuff maybe you're not into, and how they could use that data to target you a little bit more specifically than a normal ad would be able to target you. So that's bad enough. But then this professor actually took that data and sold it to a company that you've probably heard, which is called Cambridge Analytica. And that is against Facebook's terms of use, but obviously there's nothing they can do to stop it. So in a nutshell, that's essentially what happened, right? And that was exposed. Facebook had apparently known about this for a long time before they actually acted on it or publicly acknowledged it. I think it was, close to a year. I believe it was early last year that they knew about this. At least that's what they're speculating. So it raises the big question, like what the hell? Like, are we supposed to, do we accept this? Is this what we signed up for? I mean, do we deserve this? I guess is maybe a better question, but initial thoughts. What are you guys thinking here?
Yeah. I'll let Joe go.
I have many. So
we only have 40 minutes, Joe. Okay?
I know. So I'll try to keep it. I'll try to keep it to a low burn. But I mean, in the first episode of this podcast, we talked about what was the running company, right? That publicized a bunch of running data that exposed like military bases. When I was teaching at the University of Scranton, this was stuff that I talked about. Like there was a website called Take This Lollipop. I don't know if you guys remember that website, but you would basically just like click a button and it would automatically log you into Facebook, not ask you for very much as far as permissions go. And then it was a video of this guy who was like tracking you and your real profile stuff would show up in this video. Like that they just generated on the fly, friends information and stuff like that. Google tracks your history, right? The lesson that I tried to give my students was if you're getting all of this stuff for free, and you are the product, right? Sean Hesketh tweeted that. I think he put it more succinctly than I could put it. But if you're getting something for free, somebody's making money somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. Facebook has over 1 billion active monthly users. That costs a lot of money. And the ads, like you mentioned, like more specific than regular ads. Regular ads are like, are you a 32-year-old dad who likes to smoke cigars living outside Philadelphia? I'm like, that's me to a T. Like, that's me. Exactly.
With the custom t-shirt that says that, like,
yeah, right. Yeah, right. Exactly. So, I think I was most surprised by how many people, at least in our field, we're surprised by the fact that all of this data is out there about us. So I think that was my biggest takeaway. I've kind of known this for years. I've kind of assumed,
and I'm assuming you're both Facebook users, whether you're active or not. It's another question. You have active accounts, right?
Right.
I haven't deleted it yet.
So. Yeah, as do I. I have an active account. So,
right.
I mean, I think that's a great point. Like, and that's if you don't know what the product is, if you're not paying for something, you more than likely are the product. And it's one of the first questions I ask people when they're like, oh, there's this new service and this new app or whatever. And one, just because I'm curious, I'm like, oh, how are they making money? Like, are there ads? No, there's no ads. So how are they making money? Like, is it like a pre-revenue strategy, pre-ad? We haven't figured that out. Like the whole Twitter thing, like that's always one of the first questions I ask. And almost every time it's like, they don't know how they're making money. Well, then they're probably making money off of your data. That's right. How they're making money, or at least that's the goal at some point, right?
Peter Thiel's not just throwing millions of dollars at companies out of the goodness of his heart, right? Like,
I mean, if he is, we should talk, because
right.
I'll take some money.
I have ideas.
Yeah, and I think it's true. It's like we always look at these and we think, okay, they're not, any of these haven't started a platform out of the goodness of their heart. I mean, there's always motivation behind it, and it's going to be the almighty dollar. It's what I find interesting, and I look at this. I mean, the thing with the political thing, with the information that was leaked and Facebook did it for a year, that all pisses me off. Yeah, okay, somebody's got to pay there. Somebody really screwed up. The other data, I think that the strange thing about it is, no matter how much we preach it, is people are just creatures when something's thrown out there, especially like Facebook. They don't think of it really as an app, a business. They think of it as a place to just go and talk. Mm-hmm. And they don't really get it, and they don't look at it. And Joe mentioned, it's surprising when some people in tech that deal with this all the time. But, for the normal user that isn't in tech or marketing, they don't look at the big picture when they dive into these things. They just think, oh, my friends are on here talking. And I always like to think of how the most menial conversations, which I hate on Facebook, it's basically people have suddenly everything they think has to be spewed out in public. And so I look at something that nobody really thinks of. They're thinking of all the big data, but they're not thinking of all the little things that are mined too. Mm-hmm. And, you go on and say, this is an analogy I like to say, you go on and say, I had a crappy day. I'm going to bed with my bag of M&Ms. Well, you just told some marketers, some advertisers, somebody out there that are mining that data that you like M&Ms. Mm-hmm. And that, it proves that everybody has a bad day. They reach for some comfort. And then all the people that come in and like that are saying, maybe, by just liking it, they're kind of opening themselves up. And then, of course, all the comments come in and everybody else has to come in and say, drivel like, oh, yeah, I get it. Oh, yeah, crappy day. I grab a candy bar. Oh, yeah, I grab a payday, a Snickers. Oh, I grab a shot of Tito vodka. I mean, it's a gold mine of information where just not through these apps, but through just basic, I hate to say it, but stupid conversation. We're giving a lot of data about ourselves constantly. And that's where I think people think, okay, what am I getting when I sign in here and when I'm opening these apps? But I'm also giving a lot of stuff of where I am, what I'm doing constantly. And I've thought, how many times could I go to somebody at a conference that I've never met in person? I could study their Facebook for the last year and go up and just have the most bizarro conversation, oh, how's that scab doing on your leg that you had a week ago? And, just keep bringing up all this conversation. And you really think, we're putting out a lot of stuff in so many different ways. And
tell you what, if I'm having a bad day, I'm going to do all the above. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
M&M's, candy bars, and vodka. I mean,
I just put the M&Ms in the vodka.
That's a good bad day.
Right.
Now we're getting somewhere. But I think you bring up a good point, Bob. And it's like, and you as well, Joe. But like most people, we're almost getting blind to when Facebook pops up or our phones pop up and say, hey, by adding this app or whatever, here's everything you're giving away. It's almost like looking at a terms of use these days. It's like, like I've been going through my phone. I have an Android phone. I'm going through my phone a lot lately in the past week or so, and just kind of going through permissions and notifications and this and that, and really making sure that I'm comfortable with what's open on what app and for what app and what permissions. And I got to be honest, I'm a pretty technical guy. I'm getting very confused by a lot of the options and within, you know, specifically around permissions and control for these apps. I mean, there's a number of apps that are like core Google Android stuff that need access to like ridiculous stuff like my phone and SMS. Like why does it and then if you turn it off, it's like, oh, Android's not gonna work right. And it's like, well, like why? What the hell? Like why? Like
Yeah.
So I mean, are people just getting to the point where these permissions that they're saying, great, whatever, just make it work, are kind of the new terms of use where we just blindly accept it without thinking about the repercussions of what we're opening ourselves up for?
Yeah, and opening in new accounts, it's so much easier. People don't want to mess with passwords.
Yeah.
Why not use Google?
I love that part
Facebook?
of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, you know, and you click on it and it says, you know, by clicking this, you will have access to your contacts, your It lists like 6 things. It's like, okay, I guess so. Yeah, sure. Go ahead. So it is that they're taking human nature and taking advantage of it, basically.
And that's one of the things that has come out since, is now that people are doing a deeper dive into some of the data that Facebook has been collecting. You know, there's articles out there where I think this was specific to Facebook Messenger, but when you give access to your contacts, it's not just giving access to your contacts. It's literally pulling in, like, you know, calls and stuff you've made, and holding on to everything. So if you delete a contact, it's not removing it, it's keeping it, you know? So, I actually did an export. Have you guys looked at your data? I did an export of my Facebook data earlier to see. I was curious what it looks like, right? Have either of you guys done that?
No, I haven't done that.
It's interesting.
I'm not on there that much, so it'd probably be really boring, but I'm sure they've gleaned some interesting stuff from me.
It's interesting, yeah, because most of the stuff I was like, okay, like it's what I expected, but there was a few nuggets in there, and I haven't like gone through every single layer because there's a lot. It was about 250 megs of data, and you can easily get to this if you go into Facebook, go to settings and general. At the bottom, there's a download a copy of your Facebook data, and it takes a little bit to generate, and they'll email you when it's ready, but it gives you a zip, and it's essentially it's all static HTML. So it's got an index page, you open it up, and then it's like a kind of a very vanilla looking like profile page for you. Like it's got all my profile information, it's got contact, it's got timeline. It has a page that shows everybody I have poked, or anyone that has poked me, which I didn't even know you could still do that. But apparently I poked a few people a few years ago. I don't remember doing that, but apparently it's
all that Tito's vodka.
Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, there's some stuff in here that I don't remember setting. There's some stuff in here that I could absolutely see how they're targeting me. Like it shows all the ad topics that I am targeted by, which you can get to on Facebook, and you can actually modify that. I don't think people realize you can go on there and say, here's all the ad topics and categories we're serving based on what we know about you. And you can remove some of those or all.
Yeah.
Right.
I found that once. Yeah.
You can also, I don't know if they rolled this out since the Cambridge Analytica thing, but you can also say, like, don't use this for advertising purposes. So yeah, I've looked at that, and that was very telling, because it was, I mean, like I said before, it has me to a T. And I use Facebook. Facebook is one of the tabs that's always up in Chrome for me. I just, because, you know, I post something, usually I'm promoting something, I want to see how it does. Or, you know, I get bored. I get stuck on a task and I move to Facebook. I go to Facebook, Twitter, and then back to what I'm doing. But it's, I mean, that stuff, the permission stuff is really interesting. It's something that I've pointed out to my students. Like, I hope that at least some of my students from like 9 years ago now, when I first started talking about this stuff, were like, man, Joe was right, or Professor Casabona was right.
All along.
Yeah, because like I used to, like, I had an Android phone, and I never used the Twitter app because it asked for everything. And I would bring that up in class, and I would show them. I'd be like, why does Twitter need access to my SMS or my phone calls? Why? Do any of you look and ask? But nobody, you know, virtually nobody does.
You know what I think it is, and it really is. I mean, think of WordPress and security. You know, how long have we taught security? It's the same thing, because basically until it affects you personally, most people don't get it until your site's been hacked. Oh, yeah, I should have been doing it. Until
Whoops.
something with Facebook happens to you a little bit more personally than you, oh my God, so it's kind of that human nature thing until it really, you can see the broader picture. And most people just kind of, oh yeah, I get it. And they move on. So,
yeah. And that's, I mean, a big topic I've heard in the last year or two is around kind of the microphone, right? And certain apps like Facebook that by default want access to your microphone, and I don't see any reason why Facebook needs access to my microphone unless maybe I'm using Messenger, obviously, to make phone calls, and sure, but the normal Facebook app doesn't, right? And I always tell people, like, go in there and check, and every single time the microphone has full permissions with the Facebook app to listen to you. And there's a lot of speculation and even videos on YouTube that you can watch where people just are blurting out random stuff for a day or two. And sure enough, within a week, those ads start showing up on their Facebook profile, of stuff they would never, ever look at or has nothing tied to their profile. So, yeah, I mean, it's important that people go in there and review that and review it, on a schedule, every few months, take a look at it. Cause I guarantee you something's probably not the way you would prefer it, especially when you're installing new apps. Go look at exactly what it's doing and why it's doing it. But I think one good thing I think is coming out of this is it's now part of the dialogue with not just techies, but the general public. I think people are becoming more aware of this, whether it's affected them or not, to your point, Bob. But I think people are becoming more aware and they're starting to ask more questions to their friends or family that are more technical. Like, what should I be doing? What do they have? What should I look at? And, checking out like the ads that Facebook can serve on you. I mean, my export actually has a list of every ad I've ever clicked on.
Wow.
Which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff I don't even remember. It's older, but yeah, it literally date, time, and the exact ad, the text of the ad that I clicked on.
Wow.
That's extremely valuable information. This, Brad clicked on this ad. This must be something he likes, right. And they're going to just keep serving that up. So
the wording too. I mean, it's like, what grabbed Brad's attention?
Yeah. Wording, imagery. Yeah. Actually, at some point I must have set that I also speak Klingon because it says spoken languages. And that's the only language I have listed is Klingon. I don't know when I set that, but I don't even know where you set that.
Yeah.
So Facebook is like, well, he must speak Klingon. I don't know if they're targeting me for that yet, but
interesting.
Another, we talked about GDPR a little bit on the show, and that is the General Data Protection Regulation. So basically, any EU citizen that is accessing your site, they need to be aware of the type of data you're collecting. They need to have the ability to potentially remove that data or request it to be deleted. Very high level overview, but essentially in a nutshell, GDPR, that's what it is. So that's rolling out now, and basically the enforcement date is at the end of May. So just in about 2 months time is when they can actually start enforcing it, which could have some very heavy fines. So what's interesting is on the surface of GDPR, it kind of looks like, oh, this is a big headache. Like we have to re-architect how we do stuff or introduce new features to our users. But in a very timely fashion, now we're seeing this is actually really good for the consumer because sites like Facebook have already been working on ways that you can actually go in there and request certain information to be deleted, request your profile to be completely deleted in certain cases. So I actually think the GDPR is going to play a big role here, not just for EU citizens, but I could potentially see this, rolling out potentially worldwide, because now that the more general population is thinking about this stuff and talking about it, they're going to expect this. They're going to expect this on every site they join. Like, can I remove my data completely if I want to? Can I delete certain things, or is that not an option? Okay, maybe I won't sign up. So I think the GDPR is going to play a big role here, and I'm excited to see that, and especially with how Facebook has been rolling out some of those changes.
Yeah, the timing is serendipitous at at the very least, because GDPR is something that the web development community has been talking about, and those of us who use, like, let's say WordPress and WooCommerce are fairly fortunate that we don't have to do anything custom to adhere to GDPR, because they're building in things to help with that. But it's interesting how privacy is really at the forefront of everything right now. And I think, there have been some arguments about GDPR. I like the idea. I don't necessarily like that the EU is telling me, an American citizen, how to run my business, but that doesn't mean I'm not keen to protecting user privacy. It just means
Right.
that there's, you know, lines that are drawn for governmental purposes. But I would, I'm not opposed to the U.S. adopting something like this.
I think,
Yeah.
and just kind of thinking out loud here, but I think what I would more like to see is, not a hard-handed, you have to follow this regulation or you're going to open yourself up to a $20 million fine or some sort, but more of, maybe a nonprofit or something in the terms of, we follow this set of, ideas. And that is that your data is yours and you should have the ability to remove that data and delete it. And any website, social network, anything that abides by those standards and those ideas and ideals could be, approved or whatever. And there's like a seal or something, it's not a heavy handed thing. It's just like, hey, this is something you should do.
Right.
Great. Then I know when I'm signing up for a service that you're part of that process.
Yeah. And I wonder if you did something like that, though, just thinking that through, how that would affect, I mean, if it would really in the long run be the most, okay. So, I can see small, like, let's say e-commerce sites, they might say, yeah, to do this, to give my customers more faith in us, we'll do this. But I really wonder the larger retailers, if they would, since they aren't, it's not an actual force type of thing to do, if they would feel it necessary, because sometimes they're so big that they just feel like, oh, people are coming on and they don't really, it's going to be a lot more work for them, obviously, but also and also they're going to think, well, hey, everybody just kind of comes and buys stuff here. Nobody's gonna it will probably, if it was that way, it'd probably affect the smaller online businesses or the smaller online sites more, because they'd be more apt to try to make themselves stand out by saying, hey, this is what we're doing and we're protecting you. So it'd be interesting to see how something like that would play out.
Yeah. And there are a few trends at play here, right? Something that definitely works, and we've seen it work, is tax breaks as incentives, which would definitely benefit small business owners, right? I will make my site GDPR friendly if it means I get a little bit of a tax break. But for the bigger retailers, is that tax break worth more than the data they're collecting? That's what you need. That's what you need to think about for bigger retailers. Facebook knows it's not going to see a mass exodus of users. Like, okay, Elon Musk deleted his Facebook page. Like, who cares? But like the people who really use it to connect to family members and friends, I'm not deleting my Facebook profile. Like, and I have no reservations about saying that. I'm not under any false pretense. I knew when I signed up for Facebook that I was giving a whole lot of my data to some third-party company. And Facebook knows that too. They're not, a billion users aren't going to leave tomorrow. So it is interesting. I'll be interested to see. Facebook's probably going to roll out the GDPR stuff regionally, right? So it'll probably most affect the EU people, with some of it trickling over here thanks to this Cambridge Analytica stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and this is, to be clear, this is not just a Facebook issue, right? Like you mentioned, Bob, you mentioned large retailers like Amazon. I mean, think of the profile Amazon has on all of us. Like, we probably buy 3/4, maybe more of everything that we buy comes from Amazon,
Right.
Yeah.
Like everything. So
you can download that data too.
Yeah.
I've downloaded my purchase history.
I don't want to. I'm too scared. I don't want to know what the total is.
For me, there's definitely a trend, right? I signed up like my freshman year of college. I made my first purchase. So there's definitely a trend of like, I'm a poor college student and now I'm a single guy with lots of disposable income and now I'm married with a family. Like that's, see that trend.
Yeah, what you're buying in college is now it's all diapers and wipes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I bought those all the time in college anyway, but
for a different reason. Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, but I think, I hope that this, I hope the conversation continues. I hope it doesn't just disappear. And I think we will hopefully see a lot of changes across the board, from social networks to big e-commerce to everything. Like if they have our data, we should know what they have, and at the very least know what they have and have the ability to remove that information if we don't want them to have it. Right. So I think that's the core of what this is bringing up. So I do think we're going to see some changes. I know, Facebook's not going anywhere. Our parents, our grandparents, whatever, they're not moving on to another social network. This is where they're gonna, this is where they're gonna be. But it doesn't mean the younger generation won't, right? So, I think that's probably the bigger concern for Facebook. Isn't necessarily the older crowd, but it's probably the millennials, the younger crowd. And are they going to start losing them? I know they already have in some extent, but
that's why they bought Instagram. That's why they tried to buy Snapchat.
Yeah, and now they just steal their features and
Snapchat
because they're massive. But and this kind of rolls into the next topic, which is just basically around social media and just the overall sense of social media and just the negativity and just I tweeted a couple weeks ago, like I've always loved Twitter. Like I've been on Twitter since I think around 2007 or something. So a little early on when it was mostly just techies on the platform. I always enjoyed it. I always realized it was going to be a lot bigger than what a lot of people thought back then. And I, to a larger extent, I think it also had a big effect on our business early on and kind of getting us out there and getting known and seen and getting clients in the door and things like that. So, but nowadays, like, I mean, it just feels like a cesspool of like crap. Like I get on there and it's just, it's just so negative and everything's political or just people arguing and fighting. And it's just, and it's not just Twitter. Like you see it on Facebook, you see it everywhere. And it's just, I mean, what is going on? Is this the future of social media? Is just to the point where it's not that we're going to quit because of privacy concerns. We're going to quit because it's just complete garbage. And it's just a complete negative item in our life,
Yeah. That's a good question. It's the whole basis of social is that interaction and, gurus out there say, get on social. The only way to use social is just to interact with people. But that interaction by human nature turns into all that other stuff. I mean, it's the nature of the beast. I always think of, how many people would do what they're doing on social in a live, sitting in a restaurant. I mean, I think of all these scenarios that when I listen to a conversation somewhere, and it doesn't even have to be nasty and mean. It can be just weird or whatever, and I think would that person really want everybody in a room to hear the same conversation and have everybody in the room? And there's that behind the wall of online. And I don't know if it's going to get, it gets, I probably spend a little bit more time on Facebook talking to on Twitter. Facebook to me is just the most, I shouldn't say it, but it's worthless to me because it's just a lot of, it's anger and all that stuff, but it's also a lot of just nothingness. I'm learning. It's not just too much information. It's too much information about things that we don't need to know about, type of thing. So I think it's kind of the Wild West. And, when we talked about it, put it on a platform and have people at it, it's crazy.
Yeah. Twitter is like the comment section, right? And it's for two reasons. I feel like
as bad as the comment section. Have we got to that? As bad as YouTube comments? Are we there?
Yeah. I think we're there because there's no context, right? It's just people being mean out of context.
Yeah.
And it's for a couple of reasons. I feel like I'm part of the we'll say the say it to my face generation, right? Because I got on AIM, right? AOL Instant Messenger in like 7th grade. And this was like the first real time interaction for a lot of kids my age and a little bit older. And I've had people in high school and college like threaten me via AIM, and I'd be like, come say it to my face. And they wouldn't because,
of course,
like you said, Bob, like nobody would do that in real life.
Yeah.
So you have the lack of decorum that being online gives you. And then you also have the mob mentality, right? You hear horror stories about big groups of fans acting like jerks towards other groups of people, right? And this is not singling out a single city. This is, you see it a lot, right? A bunch of people get rowdy when they all believe in the same thing and they're jerks about it. So you have the mob mentality plus the lack of decorum. That's what Twitter is. And it's a shame because the crappy stuff gets shared and then the nice things don't. And it bums me out. I've read 2 articles that talk about like people are more unhappy and more connected than they've ever been. And it's not just teenagers. And it's because you see this stuff on social media. You see people pretending to be happy on Instagram, and then you see everybody being a jerk on Twitter. And that has a really bad effect on the psyche.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I got to give it to Facebook because I do really like the tools that Facebook gives you for unfollowing is my favorite, probably my favorite Facebook feature. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And unfollowing, if you're not familiar, is different than unfriending. So I'm not unfriending that person, but I'm unfollowing, which means I won't see anything they post. Now I'll still see comments if they comment on my stuff, but I won't see anything they post. And I always get asked about, well, why don't you just unfriend them? But it's like, well, you know, we all have those family members that just post a bunch of like, maybe it's not even all negative. Maybe it's just a bunch of motivational crap that's just garbage. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to unfollow Aunt, you know, Betty or unfriend her, but I just need to hide that because I don't want to see that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, or friends, and they're just, maybe they lean on a different political spectrum and they're really adamant about some hot topic and going on and on about it. Cool, unfollow or do like a 30-day mute. That's another one of my favorites.
30-day mutes are the best.
Mute it for 30 days. And
let them get it out of their system. You know?
Exactly. And then if it keeps coming back after a while, back, all right, at some point I either unfollow or unfriend. But I feel like Twitter is lacking a little bit in some of those tools. They do have some. I don't feel like they're as good as Facebook's. But Bob, you had an interesting article that you added to our show notes. And there's a really interesting point, and it was made around dating apps. And it basically is this person that said, a friend of theirs remarked that the major difference among dating apps like OkCupid, Tinder, and Bumble wasn't the way that they were designed or the companies behind them. It was how long they had existed. Meaning that new apps were more likely to attract interesting and smart people who were actually looking for dates. Older apps, by contrast, were eventually overrun with creeps and predators, no matter how well built they were. And I was like, that's a really interesting point. So things like Facebook and Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and even Snapchat, you know, sure, they had issues earlier on, but by and large, they were cleaner. There was few types of exploitations and malicious behavior. Now it's just because they're so massive and dominant, like everybody is targeting these things 24/7. You know, with this malicious stuff, with this kind of negativity, with all that, I'm like, that makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Yeah. We didn't see most of this stuff early on these apps, but we're seeing it now because everybody's on them, you know? So I don't know. I think some things are going to change. I think some people are going to get burnt out. I've even seen mention of one of the reasons people like Instagram so much is because it's more like early Facebook days when people are just sharing kind of fun, happy photos. The comments are very basic. The feature set's very basic. So there's not a ton of ways to really exploit it, which I think is, you know, I would agree with, you know, right now.
Yeah.
Plus there's like a higher barrier to entry on Instagram for, you know, spewing vitriol, let's say, right? With Twitter, you can just tweet, just type, it's out there. With Instagram, you'd have to make an image, right? Or like type out a note and then take a screenshot and then post it. Like it's like that little extra interaction. I feel most people don't realize that creates that extra barrier, right? So yeah, I don't feel bad, get annoyed at anything on Instagram like I do on Twitter or Facebook. Every day my wife has to hear me say, did you see the stuff the blah blah posts on Facebook? And she's like, no, I didn't. And I'm like, great, I'm gonna bring you down now with me. Like, here we go.
Yeah, the one thing I don't like that when Facebook added was the single messages that suddenly become a poster board, the single thoughts and stuff, because what's that done is that's given, again, you know, I think maybe who knows what their reasoning behind it is. And some people love it because, you know, you can make pretty borders around it. If you know what I'm talking about, you do a thought and you have the color background and the font's huge, but then that's also making people scream stupid things out there very easily on there. And it's not a matter anymore of just, okay, I'm going to say something really, whether it's trivial, mindless, or mean, I can make it really stand out now and get people even more whatever. Because the first time it happened a few times to me, I thought, well, this must be something a little bit more important. And, you know, somebody's talking about, oh, good night, everybody. It's like,
I'm taking my M&Ms to bed.
Yeah. Okay. So there's sometimes these tools they think that they're adding. I think in a sense backfire. I'm sure they don't backfire on what their expectations are, but they certainly do. It's like, let's emphasize everything even more now and make it more volatile.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've actually never used that. I've seen it. I've played with it. I've never actually posted something with those highlights and stuff. And it is odd. I don't like it. I don't like seeing it. I kind of wish you could turn it off and just show me text, because I do think you're right. It emphasizes that, which makes more people want to post basically tweets on Facebook, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, yep.
So, I mean, I think the moral of the story is, obviously I try to do my best to curate who I follow and what's showing up on my feed. And if things continue to show up on my feed that are pulling me down or being very negative or just straight up pissing me off, I try to make rules to hide that stuff. Either hide the pages it's coming from, unfollow the people, even unfriend them if I have to. Like, so by and large, my Facebook isn't too negative, mostly. Whereas Twitter is just, like you said, whatever. It's all over the place. But it's
and with Twitter, I use the lists a lot, like in TweetDeck.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the people, I put people in lists that I want to hear and talk to, and the other people can be off doing whatever they want to do, and it's just curating it down to what you want.
I'm pretty pot committed to Twitterific at this point because maybe a different one, Tweetbot. They both have the same set of features, so, you can mute for X amount of days. I think Twitterific. I think Twitterific allows you to block keywords based on user. So like if you like what I say, but you don't like sometimes I'll have a tweet
baseball or something,
Right? Yeah, you can just that word for me. Like that's
Star Wars.
Star Wars. That's I'm not a big Star Wars fan, but
not at all.
I mean, stuff like that is really important.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, use the tools that they give you. And I mean, if you like that negative stuff, then you're in the right spot. But if you use the tools, I think you can help curate a little bit. It's still tough. It's still tricky. And I hope those tools just get better and better, because ultimately, if they don't, I think people are going to be getting pushed off the platform because they're just going to be tired of it. And it's just a negative thing in their life that they don't need. And they're eventually going to realize that, including all of us. So I hope they do fix it, because I do like social networks. I do like Twitter. I do like Facebook. But man, they gotta get something done, because it's getting bad.
But at least you can't post the same tweet to multiple accounts. That's the stuff that Twitter's really working on over there.
Good on them. Good on them. I won't even go into the whole how Twitter's turned into a long form blog.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, well, the threads. Oh my God.
Okay, the threads are ridiculous. We won't even get into that on this show. But we have some more topics, but we've the first couple topics went. That was good conversations. I had a feeling they might go a little long, so that was great. So let's move it on and go ahead and wrap this show up. So definitely want to thank you both for being on. Always a fun time on this show. So I hope to have you both back eventually, and give you a chance to do your little outro here and tell people where they can find you online. So Joe, where are you living online? Where can people hate tweet you?
The people can hate tweet me at jcasabona. That's JCASABONA. I'm that on most social networks. My website's casabona.org. That's where you'll find all the fun stuff that I'm doing, my podcast, my online courses, a little bit of a development stuff here and there. And I want to plug one resource. If you use Firefox, talking about this privacy stuff, Mozilla rolled out, it's called a Facebook container, I think. So if you're using Firefox with that extension, your Facebook data only stays on Facebook, so it won't track other websites you're going to.
I've been hearing a lot of good things about Firefox. I downloaded the latest version, played around with it a little bit, and haven't gone back and looked at it. But it's been coming up more and more in conversation. I need to go back and give it another shot.
Yeah, I switched over to it about a month ago from Chrome. Yeah,
maybe I need to run with it for a week and see how I like it. But Bob, where can people find you online?
Oh, just Bob WP anywhere. It's like my business card says, just Google Bob WP. So you can watch my meanderings at Bob WP on Twitter. And there is. So are you going to play like a drum roll? Do you have a drum roll sound effect?
I have a Ninja. Does that count?
I
I don't have a drum roll. I need to get one of those. But you do have a big announcement to make.
Yeah, a big announcement. We've one of our 4 podcasts, Do the Woo podcast, WooCommerce podcast, that started out originally a while ago. Then I brought it back. We're going to be changing up the format. It's going to go on hiatus for about a month, and then come end of April, my regular co-host, is infamous Brad. So Brad is joining me as co-host. So it's going to be the Brad and Bob Do the Woo show.
That's me. We're going to be doing the Woo. I'm looking forward to it, starting in about a month or so. But I actually have a little teaser. Yeah, a little teaser of the new intro. Have you guys, Bob? I don't know. Have you heard this yet?
Do the woo like that. Do the woo like that.
Do the woo.
Like that. Do the woo.
This might be catchier than my show.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Do the woo woo go. Do the woo woo go. Do the woo woo go. Do the woo woo go. Do the woo.
Oh man, that will get stuck in your head faster than Lunch with Brad.
Yeah.
Do the woo. All right, that may not be the new intro, but I don't know. It's got some legs.
Yeah, it does.
Hey, congratulations. Brad, you're going from no podcast to 2 podcasts.
2. I know. It's going to be fun. I enjoy it just like you, Joe. I enjoyed podcasting. It's fun to get on and talk tech and web, and we're going to be getting more into the e-commerce side of things and WooCommerce, but it'll be a lot of fun. So keep an eye on Twitter, and we'll get the official dates out there as soon as we have them nailed down. And you'll be getting a lot more of me. So
cool.
All right.
Righty.
Hey.
So that wraps up episode 4 of Lunch with Brad. We'll be back in 2 weeks. In fact, in 2 weeks, I hope this works, but in 2 weeks, I'm going to be in Scotland with my sister's family who live there. And my brother-in-law is a techie, and he works more on the VoIP. His company does like VoIP stuff with phones. But I think I might try to do a live lunch with Brad in the Scottish Highlands, maybe even sipping on some delicious local scotch.
Yes.
Get a couple guests on there with those good Scottish accents. That's what you need. Yeah.
Oh, he's got one. So so that's the goal. In 2 weeks, we should be coming live from the Scottish Highlands. Keep an eye on Lunch with Brad hashtag WilliamsBA on Twitter, and the website's lunchwithbrad.com, where you can check out all the past episodes, show notes, and all that good stuff. So if it's every other Thursday, it's Lunch with Brad. Lunch with Brad. Lunch with Brad. Joe loves this.
I do. It's my favorite. I'm sorry to everybody. I can't sing, but I will sing.
Lunch with Bob.
Lunch with Joe.